Alright, so here we go. This is my 1964 Dynamic 88 convertible. Alright, my phone kind of sucks. It's probably going to shut off halfway through. We're going to try to do this. Anyway, I think if I keep the cover from flapping shut, it typically is okay. We'll do a short walk around. So, you might notice the stance. It sits up pretty well because I put new springs and shocks in the rear. I might have to do the same thing in the front. But it's not terrible. The rust on the bumper is pretty common for these old cars. It's because, as I understand it, GM decided to weld the bumper mount to the bumper instead of bolting it, and then moisture gets in between, and so now they tend to rust. But you can take that bumper off and get it to a shop who can, weld, correct the rust, clean the whole thing up, and then re-chrome the bumper. I got a lot of crap around the car, so it's kind of hard to get a good view of it, but we're gonna pull it out, take a little drive. The hubcaps are actually from 1963, if I'm not mistaken. Those are 63 hubcaps, and I've only had this car out hours, literally hours. I just finished with the springs. And this part of the wheel, you can see, I'm going to paint the wheels white, same color as the car. I think it'd be nice to have a little white stripe around there. So the car's not perfect by any stretch, not by any stretch at all, but it's really in good shape. And these big Oldsmobiles are not incredibly valuable. I mean, like if this was an Impala, it'd probably be worth twice what this car is worth. But because it's an 88, it's not generally expected to be worth so much. But I really like the lines. I like the belt line of it. I think that belt line looks really good down the length of the car. And I like the trim. You look down, a little bit of a fin that's still there. It still has a reminiscent of the fin. They were fading the fins away in the early 60s, so we're kind of getting to the end of that era with the fins, Red interior with the white car. I think it's really nice. Of course, we got the fuzzy dice. Dash has got some scratches. There's some marks on it. It's not perfect, but that means I'm not afraid to drive it, It's just like, screw it, let's drive it. So, as I say, screw it, let's drive it. Screw it, let's drive it. Now the choke has a, I'm going to open this window, it's hot in here. The choke has this thermostatic control on the exhaust manifold, which typically freezes up. It doesn't work right. So I bypassed it. So the choke isn't perfect. The car's a little bit rough when it's first cold. And like I said, I literally rolled it out of the barn today. So it could be that I didn't get it exactly perfect. We'll still work on it. I'll set the timing. I'll work on the timing. I'll work on the idle. I did convert the ignition from points to a magnetic pickup, but the distributor still looks the same. We'll look at the engine in a minute, but cool thing, check this out. This is a Roto Hydromatic. How can I show you this? You see the shifter there? The shifter indicator? It's a Roto Hydromatic, and it goes park, neutral, drive, second, low, reverses at the end. See that? There you go, now you can see it. Park, neutral, drive, second, low, reverse. So reverse is way down here. It's an old Roto Hydromatic, and people hate these transmissions. Just going around the block.
You move his car?
I can get by it. I moved the bike. There you go. Now, the cool thing about these old 60s cars, this is a full-size car from 1964. It wasn't meant to be a hot rod. It really wasn't. It's a big, lazy car. It's got a 394 under the hood, but it's a big, lazy car. And the Roto Hydromatic transmission is a perfect example of that. But what I was thinking as I said that was the way the steering wheel, you could spin this thing with one finger, the way this car drives. The steering wheel is a one-finger thing. It's so light. And the brakes are crazy touchy. crazy touchy. You know, like if you're used to stepping on the brakes in your modern car, you'd lock this thing up, you would skid. And this is 4-wheel drum brakes, you know? Now, you feel how the engine kind of revs, but the transmission's got slip. So the engine kind of revs and the car kind of drags a little. Well, it's just the transmission, because the Rotor-Hydra-Matic has a lot more slip in that first position than what you're used to if you had like an old TH3, you know, Turbo-Hydra-Matic 350 or Turbo-Hydra-Matic 400 in a mid-70s hot rod. And you notice it didn't downshift. That's me. I've got to adjust that. There is a downshift that I can adjust. So that's just once around the block here. Let's do this. Just pull it right over to the side. I want to pull it over. We'll do a little walk around where we got a little more room to see the car. Hang on. I'm going to shift this down into reverse, which blows my mind. I got that mirror out on my fender. That's my only mirror. There's no mirror on that side. I have no right side mirror. And I got, of course, I got the rear view, but I've got no fender mirror. I want to try to do this right, because I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to scuff up my tires or bang up my hubcaps. And I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to make a little mirror adjustment. I'm going to bring the mirror down. See? If you can tell. But now I can see the ground in my mirror, which is what I want to see. I want to see the curbstone, so I'm not grinding up against the curb. There you go. That's what I want to see. You see, there's the curb. I don't know if you can see that. I can see that. That's what I want to see. All right, this is a good spot. I'm going to put this in park. I got the car cover in the back seat, so you can't see the back seat, but this is it. This is the inside of the car. It's a big bench seat. Like I said, there's some scratches in the dash. You can see the scratches, but it wasn't a crazy expensive car. I got it for, I thought it was fair. There's your door, so you got the pull lever for the to open it, and there's crank windows. This crank here opens the vent window. See a little vent window you can open up. That's so cool. That is so 1960s, you know? So let's get out. Let's take a look. Let's have ourselves a look. So now, first of all, like I said, I just did springs and shocks in the rear to get that back end up a little higher. We'll move down here. Let me show you this. When you looked at it before I did that, you could not see the top of the hubcap. The car sat down a full inch to 1.5 inches lower. You couldn't see the top of the hubcap even from this angle. It sat that low. So, like I said, I love the belt line on the car. I think it's really attractive. I love the remnants of the fin from the old 50s. You remember the 1950s, early 60s, had those big fins on their cars? This car still got something of a fin, right? And it's chrome trimmed down the length of the car. It's got excellent badging. Please ignore my license plate. It doesn't belong to this car anyway. The car's not registered. And you can see there's a little bit of pitting on the chrome. It's not perfect. And there's some nicks in the paint. And if you look close, you can see there's some, you know, kind of half-ass hack bodywork got done here. Obviously, this got patched with some Bondo. And we can look at the door trims if you want, and you'll see that they're less than perfect. But I knew the car was less than perfect when I bought it. And you can hear that exhaust note. That's pretty cool. But again, look down the belt line of the car. Right? Isn't that nice? And what I didn't notice right off is it's got a little bit of a hip. And if you can tell in the video, there you go, that might show you. There's a little bit of a hip over the rear wheels that fades in to the door line. Right? Then we come around front. Here's your 64 grill, which I think is much nicer than the 63 grill. Although, in my honest opinion, it's not as nice as the 61 grill. The 61 grill, I just love the lines on the 61. But this is a nice, it's got a nice line. It's got really good badging. See, it says Oldsmobile across the hood, right? It's got the fender mirror, right? That mirror on the fender there. Let's open the hood. See, this I got to buff. I buffed out a lot of those kind of marks on the side. There were a lot of these marks on the side. They buffed out nice. I got a couple spots on the hood. They'll buff out really good. So what do you think is under here? I'll tell you what's under here. It's a 1964 low compression 394. There it is. That's the factory color. I dressed up the fins on the valve covers with a little bit of silver just because, you know, because I wanted to. I got the disc for the breather, the air cleaner cover. That's a new power steering pump. If you listen, there is still a small leak either on the manifold or at the crossover pipe. Small. It's not big, but you can hear it. A little bit of... Let me see. You know, it sounds like it when I listen, but I can't find it. So if there is a little leak there, it's small. I was worried that my water pump was leaking, but it seems to have settled in. I thought maybe my coolant bottle was leaking, but there's no puddles. I do think the rear main seal is leaking. If you look, there's probably a small oil drip under the car. Yeah, you can't see it with the phone, but I can see it. There's a small drip under the rear main. This engine's been rebuilt. I had the block Magnaflux and honed out the cylinders. I reused the old pistons. I didn't buy new pistons. I could have had it bored out 10 over and put new pistons in it, but I didn't. And we had the crank ground and polished so that we could use 10 over main bearings and standard size rod bearings. That's what was available from the shops where I was shopping. I probably, in hindsight, should have had the pistons bored out 10 over, the cylinders bored out 10 over, and put in new pistons, new 10 over pistons, because they probably would have been a tighter fit. I don't know if I'm getting quite the compression I would have liked to got out of all of my cylinders. I got a couple cylinders that are only getting me a little over 100, and I got other cylinders that are getting me well over 120. So I'm thinking, because I reused the original pistons, obviously new rings, but because I reused the factory pistons, I think I might not be getting quite the compression on a couple of cylinders. Number 6 in particular. Number 6 in particular is not where I really would have liked it to be. But it's a big old lazy car, so I'm not going to feel bad. You can see the hip a little bit more from this view. You see how that rear fender flares out? It just kind of goes out and around when you get to the back of the car. That's kind of cute. I kind of like that. But there it is. I mean, I probably spent too much time talking for a pretty basic thing, but I know there's people out, like on the Classic Oldsmobile website, that I've posted some stuff. They've been really good with advice and help along the way, and so I know they would love to see this full walk around and see it with the bling. I didn't add that air cleaner disc until I was finished, and I didn't put the hubcaps on it until I felt like I was finished. But we'll step back now. Let's try to get a whole view of the car so you can see the full car. Wow, see, it's so freaking big. I got it about 15 feet away if you'd even see the whole car in the camera. there it is. There it is. I want to send this over to Troy. Troy's the guy I bought the car from. I'm going to share a link with Troy because he was kind enough to sign some documents I needed for the registration, which I thought I had, but the registry demanded, and it's been 8 months. But I still hit him on email, and he still agreed to sign the papers and mail them back, and I just received them today. So Troy, thank you. And Charlie and all the guys on the Oldsmobile, Classic Oldsmobile website that were so helpful while I was working through this car and trying to clean up the engine and do the engine build and fix the exhaust leaks and the manifold. The springs, I could go on about what I did under there in the back end with the springs and the shocks. They're actually gas charged. They're not the KYB, but they're the Napa copy of the KYB gas charged shock from a 65, which is a different mounting style. So I had to fabricate mounts under the back of the car to mount the 65 shock absorbers in the 64 car, but I think it's going to be a better setup. I really do. It's going to be a better setup because they're going to be easier to replace, and there was just so much shit going on under there that I didn't feel like dealing with. Again, I said some of the body work looks like it was a little bit of hack body work. Like, you can look here. Look down this side here. What do you see? Oh, it's what you don't see. Look down here. Down here, what do you see? You see screws, right? There's screws. But over here, there's no screws. Why are there no screws? Because somebody slathered Bondo down the inside of this fender. So there's probably some rust up under there, and you can see the surface rust underneath. So there's clearly some surface rust in here. You look down here, there's a hole rusted right through. So it's not perfect, but, you know, it's an old car, and it runs, and I drive it, and I enjoy it. It's not a show car. This is kind of interesting, see? It's red, but the fender tag says this car is provincial white from the factory, and this is obviously provincial white. So why is this fender red? I don't know. Is it an aftermarket, a replacement fender? Maybe it's a replacement fender. But look at this little chip in the paint, and it's red. So I'm thinking this car is provincial white, and somebody painted it red to match the red interior, and then somebody else then repainted it white. So it's got a couple of repaints. A couple other things I've noticed. Look down here in the doors. You can see the rust on the edge of the doors. It's not terrible, but there's a thickness that's building up here. And I'm thinking that they probably fixed that bottom corner of the door with Bondo. It's probably filled with Bondo. In fact, when you look at it, you can almost see the little ripple. There's probably a lot of Bondo down under here. There's a little another ripple right here. So there's some ripples, and you can see the rust popping through right there, and a little bit of rust popping through here. So it's probably kind of a, I don't want to say a hack paint job, but it certainly is not, you know, a Shorty's Dream Garage, you know, Joe Martin or Dan Short quality rebuild. But again, you know, the 64 Dynamic 88 was nobody's dream car. You're not going to get $60,000, $70,000 for one of these cars, even if they're in great shape. It's just not what people look for. It's not a Chevelle. It's not a Mustang. It's not a Camaro. A little scuff. I think I can clean this up a little bit. You know? But damn, it's a driver. It's a driver. It's a drop the top and go for a ride kind of car, and I'm happy with that. Until all this rust starts to pop out and show itself, and then I'm going to end up with a world of hurt that I'm going to have to fix. I'll worry about that when it happens. For now, the motor looks good. It sounds good. The car looks really clean. It looks straight. I know there's probably some buried treasure under there that we're gonna discover in 3 or 4 years, but for now, it's a car I can drive and enjoy. And I'm pretty happy with it. So let's step back, let's get a full car view. I'll shut my mouth so you can hear the engine run. Neighbor's dogs are out, so I'm just gonna shut this down. But there she is. That's my 1964 Olds Dynamic 88.